Hello, everyone, and thank you again so much for joining us today for the Business After Windows live Q&A sessions. And just remember again that during these sessions you can submit your questions on Twitter by tweeting @BizAfterWindows with hashtag #TheNewCloud. So up next we've got Jim Secord. He's the CEO of Cashew, and he spoke to us about different devices, different experiences. Cashew is a simple cloud accounting tool that's built with small businesses in mind. Cashew is now the Apple App Store's most downloaded iPad accounting app, and it boasts over 150,000 registered users. So, Jim, thank you so much for joining us.
Great, thank you.
We've got a ton of questions for you, and one of the best things about being the moderator is that I get to ask my question first. So I was hoping that you could tell us a little bit about the process that you went through when you decided you were entering the technology realm and you decided that you wanted to do mobile and cloud.
Yeah, definitely. I think both of those, both mobile and cloud, represent really big shifts in sort of technology infrastructure. It's almost like, moving from, back in the olden days from DOS into Windows, and whenever that happens, it creates opportunities. And we took what was a relatively mature and established segment like accounting and really thought, okay, how can we really streamline the process by introducing, the benefits of the cloud, collaboration, real-time sharing, that type of thing, as well as mobile. So just looking at, again, how those technologies as platforms could really simplify the whole process around accounting and record keeping.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I'm going to hop over here to some of the questions that have been submitted previously. And let's go ahead and do this one. What is your opinion of the iWatch and other wearable technologies?
Very exciting technologies, definitely. Obviously, they're new, they're immature, but they represent tremendous potential. And I think, one of the things we looked at from a design perspective when it came to mobile in general, people carrying around their phones or their tablets, was the fact that these are very personal devices. They're with you at all times. They know who you are. They know where you are. And I think, iWatch and other, or Apple Watch and other wearable technologies really represent the next step in that. So I'm excited about the applications that can be delivered through a platform like that because again, something that you've always got with you, something that's always on, always available. I imagine applications like being able to simply talk to your watch and let it know to invoice a customer or record an expense, and the watch, by virtue of the fact it's with you, knows, okay, well, the expense occurred at this time, at this location, so when I download my bank transactions through the cloud, let's match up all of this information together and virtually eliminate sort of the whole process of the manual process of data entry.
It is incredibly exciting, all of these things that are going to be happening in the future. So your points are excellent in your video, but what would you recommend for a long existing company that wants to go mobile but is maybe not designing for mobile from the ground up? Would your recommendations change in order or in magnitude?
Definitely. I think it was a hard decision to go mobile from our perspective because we were early on, and it's one of those decisions that you almost need, to bet your company or your product line on. In today's world, you take a look at how people access the cloud, how they interact with technology. Mobile is really the #1 way. There's more people using smartphones than there are desktop computers. Now, when we started off building Cashew, of course that wasn't the case, and the power that we've got in our hand today is not nearly as prevalent as it was, say, five years ago when we started building Cashew. So, our approach was to go all in and, have both the vision, but also the willpower to, stay true to the fact that we thought mobile first was the direction to go in, and and it seemed like a really risky decision at the time. In hindsight, it wasn't.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Okay, we've got some Twitter questions coming in here. We've got Casey asks, can one CEO be in two places at once? Oh, that wasn't a question. She was just talking about how awesome you are. This is fantastic. Okay. Well, I do have another Twitter question here. What is the next device that you are planning to build to?
So we've been working on an Android application for some time, and we'll be launching that in the very near future. We're super excited about that. We've seen the success that we've had. We started off actually on an Apple iPad and the tablet form factor. We designed first for that, and I can talk about that a little bit later, but we targeted the iPad first, then we went to the iPhone, and the Android smartphone is next up for us.
Awesome. And so do you want to talk a little bit about maybe some of the, not necessarily issues, but the things that you're running into as you design for this? It's so different from the iPhone and the iPad. You're going Android now. What has that been like?
Well, I think the process has been, from a development approach, has been relatively smooth. I mean, one of the things I talked about in the presentation was the importance of designing for mobile, making sure that you're very focused on the task at hand to keep the applications kind of as simple and as clean as possible. So by developing for the iPhone first and that form factor, it's made it relatively easy to transition over to Android. A lot of the product and design decisions that we work through on the Android as far as the user experience, or work through on the iOS platform as far as the user experience goes, we were able to translate that really easily onto Android. I think the more challenging factor is just the ecosystem around Android as opposed to the iOS environment. We don't have as much experience on the Google Play Store in terms of how people discover apps, how people pay for apps. It's that part of it is different, but in terms of designing for the form factor, that's been great.
Excellent, thank you. Notwithstanding the mobile first strategy, when you developed for the web, did you have to reconcile cross-browser differences?
Absolutely. The typical, it works in IE but doesn't work in Safari, or works in Chrome and doesn't work in IE. So we had to go through a lot of that initially. That certainly has gotten immensely better as web technologies have matured, but early on that was a real challenge for us.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I feel like that's something that probably every tech company experiences a little bit of. Do you find, do you have QA testers that go through and take care of that kind of thing, or what is your process for that?
Yeah, we do. We've got really a couple of approaches. We do have in-house testing, which tests across browsers and certainly across mobile devices, because that's becoming more of a challenge. But we also release. I mean, the great thing about the cloud, and I mean this is one of the things that's not talked about a lot, is the whole process of getting your software into the hands of your users is easy. So when you have issues, it's very easy to correct them and update your software almost in real time. And so we use our user base. We've got a group of people that use Cashew that like to try out things. They're on our beta or our test group. So we release early to them and get feedback from them. So it's almost crowdsourcing your QA, and that's from a software perspective in terms of being able to move quickly. Huge benefit of the cloud.
Absolutely, that's fantastic. What strategies did you take to put the proper team in place to handle the different devices that your application has to interface with? This is a long question. I'll ask it all at once and then you can break it up.
Okay.
So there's that part. Is the web UI guy the same as the mobile one? And what are the differences in the skills that are needed for each designer?
Yeah, so these are great questions, and I'm something that we still continue to evolve. So like I'd said in again in the presentation, is we designed for mobile first. So can we get it within that form factor, figure out sort of what job that application or that feature is trying to perform or solve, so real focus around that, and then we expand out to the web where there's additional functionality, maybe additional settings and configuration and stuff like that. So to answer the question about the same team, we do have one designer that designs both for the web and for mobile. Now, we tend to take stuff from mobile and then bring it over onto the web, which is again backwards from what people may have traditionally done. But you know, that's the way we do it today, and we try and sort of share across that. But one designer, and then of course different development teams developing for the actual front end application.
Great. In the mindset for cloud-based accounting changing among mid-size enterprises? Oh, excuse me. Is the mindset for cloud-based accounting changing among mid-size enterprises? And do you see the Cashew target market expanding into the mid-market?
Well, those are two great questions. So let me first talk about the mindset for mid-size accounting and really even what's going on in terms of the cloud and accounting or financial apps, because I think that segment of applications has really lagged behind other applications, and rightfully so, because issues of security, availability are all, you know, in the mindset of anyone that's running companies. I mean, financial data, very important to, you know, ensure that it is you know, protected and secure. But honestly, I feel like the tide has really shifted lately. So the discussion about, you know, whether you should go cloud or whether you should not go cloud is really over, and we're seeing lots of mid-sized companies make that leap from desktop or client server into the cloud as far as accounting goes. And I do think that even a year ago there was a lot of people that would debate, you know, whether you should move your accounting application into the cloud. It is amazing how quickly that has transformed in the industry, and I think it's both IT people who you know, have that view and have really progressed that, as well as from the accounting profession too. You know, there's a lot of education and thought that goes in from an accounting profession perspective of the impact of the cloud. So again, the debate about whether or not to go to the cloud, I think, is over. I think people, you know, if they aren't on the cloud today with their financial applications, it's just a question of when. As far as Cashew going mid-market, no. We think that market is, you know, it's well served. Accounting is a really mature segment in software. I mean, it's probably one of the first applications that was built on the PC, and there's great companies out there, you know, companies like Intact and NetSuite and of course Intuit that have really good mid-market solutions for accounting. What we see though, and the opportunity for Cashew, is that the small business person, either the person who's self-employed and is running their own show, and they're both, you know, the chief salesperson and bookkeeper and you know, customer service person, that segment, of which about 30 million people in the U.S. and Canada, is really underserved, because traditional accounting applications you know, are designed for accountants and CPAs, whereas we see Cashew as serving that small business person, and the cloud has really enabled that. So, you know, the small business person, if you think about it, they're again not experienced around accounting. Cashew gives them an application where they can enter expenses, they can invoice customers. It's all very simple. They use their mobile devices to do that. But what's great is that their accountant can view in real time on the cloud what they're doing, and they can make recommendations, suggestions, fix mistakes, support that product. So it's kind of this whole new business model that's emerging for that small business owner, and how they work with, you know, their accountant, how they work with their bank, how they work with financial data.
Awesome. So for a small company that is looking to make a change into the cloud, what sort of dynamics would need to change within the small business to make it work for them?
I'm not sure that anything really needs to change. I think, if someone's starting a business today, chances are it's cloud first. I mean, when you look at when we deal with, say, CPAs who are just coming out of school, they've grown up in a world where it's cloud first. It's Google Docs, it's banking online. There's really nothing to change. In fact, the expectation is that everything is in the cloud. You don't need to worry about things like backing up your data or sharing it easily with someone, or all the age-old problems that we have about sharing a file using a USB stick. Anybody that's used QuickBooks for accounting in the past 20 years knows what a challenge it is to get your data from one place to another. And there's this whole new generation of people that their expectation that it's always cloud first.
Right. What about an older, already existing company, though, that might be interested in making the move over, and they've been using the memory stick and all that? What about for them?
Yeah, well, I think it represents definitely a shift in mindset, but there's all these core applications, things like Microsoft Office, etc., which are doing a great job of transitioning people from the desktop metaphor over to the cloud pretty seamlessly. So much like in the case of Cashew, where our mobile apps are, it's almost a hybrid where the applications are stored locally, and you download them and you can work offline, but all of your data is stored in the cloud, and it's easy to collaborate and synchronize and stuff like that. So I think just the advances around the software and the applications has made it really easy for people to make that transition.
Great. So people don't need to be afraid of the cloud. It's pretty awesome.
Absolutely.
We've got another really good question coming through on Twitter. What are your thoughts on Square and its impact on the accounting industry?
Yeah, so Square, which does credit card processing, and has really simplified the whole process of getting paid. Like for small business people, they face a lot of challenges when it comes to their back office, their accounting, taxes, etc. And one of those challenges is just setting up a merchant account and accepting payment. And Square really disrupted the whole industry by making that process very easy to get paid by credit card. And as a result, I think it pushes everyone along kind of to the cloud even that much faster, because people are now accepting payments via their mobile phone. They are, those payments are then getting processed and being direct deposited in their bank. People are then able to download those transactions from their bank directly into their accounting system. So the whole process of kind of this data entry and record keeping, where it was an onerous task where people would spend, the last day of every month keying everything into their accounting system, has really been disrupted and revolutionized, and Square's been really at the, one of the companies on the forefront of that. And they, above I think all others, have really also proven that being, cloud-based and mobile first gives them a tremendous competitive advantage over, really well-established players in the industry, like, giants like Visa and MasterCard.
Right. Definitely. Thank you. I noticed your app is currently only available for mobile via the Apple ecosystem. What led to that choice, and what challenges do you see with working with the Android platform?
Yeah, so the reason we chose to go Apple first was, well, there's multiple reasons. The first off was we decided we really wanted to focus on one platform and get the mobile experience right. So rather than try and work on iOS and Android, we felt like if we can get it right and we can be successful both from a usability perspective, but also from a commercial perspective on the iOS ecosystem, then that would translate over to Android. So I think from what we've seen is it's a lot easier to monetize your application on the iOS ecosystem than it is on Android. People are just more willing to pay for apps through through iOS. So that was the first choice. It was really, you know, could we prove it both from a product but also from a commercial success. The second thing, which is a little less to do with kind of the platforms, but we started developing for the iPad first, and we chose that very deliberately because we wanted to not really position mobile as a companion app to the web app, but when we saw the iPad as a device and the iPad, you know, connected to the cloud as this great platform, we felt we could really actually provide a better experience on the tablet than we could, say, through the browser. So, in fact, the browser and the desktop would be a companion app to the iPad app as opposed to what you see often vice versa. So people have great SaaS applications and they've got mobile apps too, but the mobile apps are often, you know, companions of what that browser application is. We wanted to reverse that. So the iPad was powerful. It from a computing perspective, you know, it had all of the storage, CPU, you know, etc. to build a full app. Plus these tremendous advantages, things like long battery life. People could carry it around with them all day long. They could use a touch interface, which accounting is intimidating, but there's something that's really empowering when people can, you know, pull up their transactions or an income statement and they can pinch and zoom and swipe and, you know, touch their numbers and drill down into it. So we just thought that was a great way of differentiating our product and gave us a real competitive advantage to be first mover on that.
That's interesting. So at this point, do you still find that the majority or a lot of your customers are still working on the iPad?
Absolutely. And I think, we carved out that niche for cashews, so we still get a lot of our people that come in on the iPad first. And here's the thing, I mean, we're all in technology, so it's sometimes hard for us to see the impact that the iPad and tablets, but primarily the iPad has had on the general small business person or general person in general out there, which is they're incredibly easy devices to use. They're a lot easier to use, to set up than a desktop PC. And for many people, that's their primary computing device, and that they spend more time on their iPad than they do on their PC. And you see a lot of cases where people don't even buy a desktop anymore. They simply use their tablet.
And everything you're saying here is, again, all of these presentations kind of combine. You're talking a lot about the iPad, and Melissa Halfman talks about how kids are now learning how to use iPads. So they're kind of growing up to be your customers.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so we've got a couple more questions here. How do you feel that more tech companies can take advantage of mobile, and what design tactics would you recommend?
Well, first off, mobile represents, again, I spoke about it earlier, it's a shift in platforms, and whenever that occurs, it creates opportunities. So just like we were able to relook at how people do accounting and record keeping through the lens of mobile and the time savings that could help with, that gave us an entry point into what is a pretty competitive and crowded but incredibly large market. So I think mobile represents just a fantastic opportunity for tech companies. In terms of sort of design around that, back to the mobile first. I think people, especially tech companies, have to realize that the general audience or general consumer out there really thinks mobile first. They reach for their iPhone or their Android phone, far more frequently than they do their desktop. So I would just encourage everyone to kind of relook at things through that lens of what does it mean when someone's accessing your application or your service through a smartphone or a tablet.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned in your presentation that you really feel that native applications are the way to go.
Yes, and we feel really strongly about that. And I think between our CTO Chuck Clark and myself, I mean, we've been told countless times about how it's better to go cross-platform. It's more efficient, easier from a software management perspective. But the reality is, from an end user perspective, you can't compare it to native applications if you're doing cross-platform or using cross-platform tools. You want your application to be as responsive, take advantage of all of the great things about that device, things like location services, built-in apps like address book and calendar, and you can't do that unless you're building native applications. So I think it's well worth the investment.
Excellent. And one more quick question here. It's actually another big one, so we'll see how quick you can make it. Do you have any data on what percentage of small businesses are using a cloud-based accounting package? In our company, we still keep our accounting system on a single PC that is not connected to the internet. Is this still the norm?
It is still the norm. I think accounting is one of those final holdouts, if you will. And the reason being, multiple things. I think only recently and when I say recently, in the past year, you've really seen the CPA community start to embrace the cloud and recognize all of the benefits of collaboration and backup and things like that. The other thing is it's incredibly hard to move from one accounting system to the other. So if someone started off, like most mature companies today do, on a desktop system like QuickBooks, moving to the cloud is time-consuming, and it represents a shift. Excuse me. So I think there's a tremendous opportunity there. So the way we look at it is that, yes, most businesses today, mature businesses, are still running on desktop, but that means that there's a great upside and great opportunity, because when people look at, do I convert from my QuickBooks desktop into the cloud, they also look around and say, well, maybe there's a good alternative to QuickBooks out there. And people, at that point discover Cashew, because if you're going to, make that switch, why not switch with the best tool? And I think other applications, things like, all of your calendars and emails and collaboration tools like Google Docs, if all of your other back office and productivity tools are in the cloud, there's a lot of pressure to get your accounting system in the cloud as well.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So, thank you, and thank you to everybody for joining us today. To catch the next session, return to businessafterwindows.com, scroll down to the Q&A session schedule, and click the live Q&A button.